Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Landing the Deal podcast. I'm your host, Miss Derby, and as you can tell from the title, I'm going to be talking to you about how I went from working in the school system to growing my real estate business to $1 million in just 3 years. So for those who are new here, I use this podcast to teach others how they too can get started in real estate, supplying vacant land to home builders, and picking up tips and tricks from the guests that I bring on this podcast to build a profitable real estate business. So for me, my teaching journey began right out of college. I graduated in 2015, specializing in students who had behavioral and special needs. And, starting out, it was a great experience. It was my first big girl job. It felt new, it felt fresh, exciting. However, as the years went by, I started seeing the school system and how they treated teachers, and I was barely making enough money to survive. So I had to get another job. I worked as a server in the evenings and found myself making more money serving tables each night. It became exhausting to juggle both teaching during the day and then serving in the evenings after a while. I was going through a lot. I needed to find something that could make me more money. So I picked up gigs here and there, tutoring, and eventually I ended up leaving the school system. I was trying to find more ways to make more money. So I explored flipping furniture and I made great profits doing that. But to make a long story short, after jumping into flipping furniture and just hustling and grinding, I found a video on YouTube on how to flip contracts. After finding that video of how to flip contracts, essentially the wholesaling process, I realized that closing deals was a lot harder than what the gurus made it out to be. I wasn't lazy. I was really busting my butt trying to close deals. However, the wholesaling houses space at that time in 2018, it was super saturated. Everyone was doing it, and I struggled to close deals consistently. As I kept grinding, learning, meeting new people, gaining knowledge, and going through trials and error, I developed character through that process, but I knew that there had to be an easier way to close deals. So during that time, my partner, Jared, and I, actually, shout out to Jared, he was a literal genius. He was always thinking outside the box, always trying to create a process to make things easier. And that's what I really admired about Jared. He had a very creative brain and the ability to think really deeply. And it was a blessing and it was a curse. And the reason why I say it was a blessing and a curse is because I was the one that was always executing. Okay, so I had that burnout from grinding while he was in his genius zone, just thinking and processing ways to make the business better. Working with Jared, we essentially created the process of the builder first strategy when it came to land. Okay, so we found that networking with builders to supply them vacant land was something that nobody else was doing in this space. No one else was tapping into finding builders, networking with them, trying to bring them land. So we spent so many months and years perfecting the strategy. And then in 2019, we started teaching people our blueprint and seeing our students close deals and grasp the concept. And close deals consistently was amazing. Essentially, we were like the land plugs. And seeing the people that were previously struggling to close deals in real estate to now being able to close deals consistently was what kept me going. Eventually, Jared and I went our separate ways, and I continued to pursue my passion of teaching. And my life really changed when I started taking automation seriously, when I was really implementing systems and processes to run my business. So that way I'm not directly involved in getting deals closed. I eventually hired someone to come in and analyze my business and ensure that other people can run the business without me, doing things like talking to sellers, builders, setting out contracts, pulling lists. Meanwhile, I was focusing on things on the business, so tracking numbers, networking, and really building up my brand. So offloading a lot of those tasks, that's what really took me to the next level financially. And by doing that, it allowed me to concentrate on money-making activities. And combining that with coaching and my land business, I started creating those multiple streams of income. And that's when I had the time to really learn to invest. So that's when I started buying land, doing different creative strategies. And looking back now, it's funny how easy my journey might sound when I talk about it. However, it took a toll on me and I experienced a lot of lows, highs, and there were tough months where I needed deals and I relied on deals to pay my bills and to keep my business alive and going. And no one talks about that. A lot of people don't talk about those hard times in the beginning as a real estate investor or wholesaler. It took us about 6 months to close our first deal. And through that process, it was difficult when we first started. We didn't have the guidance. We were relying on a lot of different gurus, just kind of hopping around from video to video, trying to see what worked for us. And I had to pick up jobs. I had to do, like I said, tutoring. I had to do different odd jobs in order to make money for our bills and marketing. And then after closing our first deal 6 months later, we made about $7,000 in 9 days from a tax deed auction. I remember watching a video, and what really clicked for me was watching this video with Max Maxwell and Tony the Closer. They were talking about, if you want to find motivated sellers, go to tax deed auctions and find properties there. So I remember seeing that video, and I remember giving up even prior to seeing that video, just so frustrated, so over it, not wanting to continue anymore because I didn't know if it was going to work or not. And then after seeing that video, I was like, you know what, let me just try this. Let's just try this. So we tried it. A few weeks later, we closed our first deal. We got it under contract, and 9 days later, it was closed for $7,000. We were on cloud nine. We thought we were making money. We're like, oh, wow, this works. The proof of concept, it made so much sense now. And I was like, okay, we can really, really do this thing up. But what we failed to do, which was really, really important, was more marketing. So when we made that $7,000, we went out and splurged and went on vacations and did all the wrong things they tell you not to do. And then as a result of that, it took us a long time to close our next deal. It took us about 2 or 3 months to close the next deal. Just kind of going through that process. It's almost like we went back to square one and was just hustling and grinding again, spending hours and hours and hours trying to close another deal. And I was just really disappointed and like, just kind of having that broke man mentality. And it's funny because you would think that you do it once, you wouldn't do it again. But we actually did that again, and again, multiple times until we were like, okay, when are we going to stop? Like, when are we going to stop? This is clearly an issue. We have this broke man mentality. And then that's when we really had to start, being around other like-minded individuals who are hustling, grinding, and saving their money, putting their money back into their marketing and putting their money back into their business. So just kind of seeing others do that, it motivated us to do the same. A few months after closing our first deal, we were able to close our next deal. And that next deal that we got and closed, it wasn't that much. I think we made like 10 grand or something like that. But I do know that once we closed that deal, it was another proof of concept. Like, okay, this is something that can be done, clearly. If you put the time, the energy into this business, you can do this. We weren't closing deals consistently. We were closing deals kind of here and there, every other month, if that. And what changed it for us, or what changed the game for me at least, was I had a horrible experience at a property in person, walking through, and I ended up getting attacked by fleas. Like, I literally had over 100 bites per leg and had to go to the hospital. That was my breaking point. I was done from there. I hated houses. I made Jared do all of the house, like all the walkthroughs through the houses, especially like the old creepy, nasty houses. Made him do all that, and I handled anything as far as acquisition, disposition, things like that, and made him do all the legwork because I was not doing it. I remember during COVID when everyone was freaking out, worrying about the economy, thinking that there was going to be a potential crash because of the pandemic. But in fact, there was a slight slowdown, and then out of nowhere, it was insane. There was a lot of investors coming in, buying up everything that they could. Prices were insane, and people needed property at an all-time high. I do remember specifically getting reached out to by a ton of home builders because we were also doing land here and there. We then started to see our business change completely when we switched from wholesaling houses to then wholesaling vacant land. Around the pandemic, everybody was shut down, not going out of their houses. And I remember Jared really just locking in and just being in his brain again and just coming up with so many different strategies and ways to still close deals while we were at home. I remember specifically he talked to a home builder. It's just one builder. He talked to one builder that mentioned to us that she was buying literally dozens and dozens of property in one market. And he was like, wow, if she's buying property in one market, I wonder if this builder is also buying property in the same market. So he started reaching out to them and they said, yes, we're buying in this market. And he just started reaching out to so many different builders and seeing that everybody was buying property for around the same price ranges in that market. So then he was like, okay, well, how about we take this and do it in another market? Let's see if anybody else is doing the same thing. So he asked their information. And then from there, we just really started building out this process of a builder first strategy, really being a land plug for home builders. He showed me kind of what he was working on. I took a look at it and saw how he was really putting things together as far as the builder first strategy, finding builders, networking with them, getting their criteria, and providing them lots based on what they need. And then seeing him do this and starting to pull lists and negotiate and make offers and seeing things started coming together, I was blown away. And from there, I started teaching it to others and seeing others have similar success. And really what made me want to start teaching others, even though Jared was super against it, he did not like the fact that I was super quick to teach others. He thought we should have collected more information as far as what to do, what to say first. But I was like super big on teaching others just because I remember struggling and not being able to close deals. And I remembered how hard it was consistently close deals. So I was big on, you know what, let me help others. I already had a small following watching me here and there on my journey. So it was easy to like kind of show them. And then everyone else started telling other people. And then things really changed for me when I closed that first 6-figure deal. I made $103,000 on one large parcel of land here in Tampa, Florida. And when I made that 103K, I remember reaching out to Tony, the closer, and letting him know, hey, like, look at this deal I did. Obviously, I learned from Max and Tony, like watching their content. So happy to show that to him. And he would put me on his platform and kind of showed, his students what they're able to do if they take this serious. I had so much people pouring into me and congratulating me and wanting to learn kind of what I did with the land, with the land side of wholesaling. And from there, I kind of developed my own little community, my own brand of people wanting to learn. And then seeing their successes made me want to go harder and put more effort into the materials, the talking points when talking to sellers, builders, scripts, contracts, all the things, and just kind of teaching them the processes on how we're able to close deals from start to finish. So that's really what did it for me. And then by incorporating my brand and then my actual business and automating my business, those things there is what helped me build my business to 7 figures. And I have no regrets. I loved the journey, the path that I went on. I feel like a lot of people really, really needed that. And seeing so many people now being able to help others with the same strategy has been such a blessing. And I never thought in a million years that I would go from being a school teacher, teaching students, making $35,000 a year, to now 3 years later, busting my butt to believe in myself and create that 7-figure business. If this is a podcast that you enjoyed watching, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on your post notifications. That way you can see whenever I make a post. And I look forward to you closing your first land deal.